Today we have the Fairies Are Exquisite Dancers, one of my very favorite preludes to do. It's based actually on Peter Pan and Kensington Gardens by J.M Barrie, illustrated by Arthur Rackham. We at Adams Music House are very fortunate in that we have the original Peter Pan book. We were able to find it at the Strand in New York City, and it's a beautiful illustration. Debussy, after his daughter Chouchou was born, he became even more interested in fairy tales. He always had a proclivity for that. And so he must have, read it. This book is so richly illustrated with the drawings, and it goes along with the story. The story in brief, Peter is a 7-day-old infant who, like all infants, used to be a part bird. So there's a fantastic element to this. Peter has complete faith in his flying abilities, so upon hearing a discussion of his adult life, he is able to escape out of the window of his London home and return to Kensington Gardens. Upon returning to the gardens, Peter is shocked to learn from the crow Solomon Caw that he's not still a bird, but more like a human. Solomon says he's crossed between the betwixt and between, crossed between them. Unfortunately, Peter now knows he cannot fly, so he's stranded in Kensington Gardens. At first, Peter can only get around on foot, but he commissions the building of a child-sized thrush's nest that he can use as a boat to navigate the gardens by way of the Serpentine, the large lake that divides Kensington Gardens from Hyde Park. This is where the Debussy part with the story comes in. Although he terrifies the fairies when he first arrives, Peter quickly gains favor with them. He amuses them with his human ways and agrees to play the panpipes at the fairy dancers. Eventually, Queen Mab grants him the wish of his heart, and he decides to return home to his mother. The fairies reluctantly help him to fly home, where he finds his mother's asleep in his old bedroom. So already, there's this sense of the real and the fantastic, the fairy tale world and the real world collide in this piece. And that indeed is a common theme throughout Debussy's works. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because this is a very technically complicated piece, but suffice it to say, some of the elements that Debussy works with, white key, black key alternation. Left hand's exclusively white key, right hand's exclusively black key. They sound harmless enough on their own, right? I mean, this is just simply a fifth and a fourth that spans the octave. This is simply thirds, C, E, A, C, G, B. But you put them together, it's a completely fantastical realm. So Debussy creates this dichotomy of the real world and this fantasy world that Peter enters to and that the fairies help him come out of, but in part by this duality to these two hands. We get it twice, paired phrases always at Debussy. Then we have a fifth and a second. This half step that's so important, this seed, this kernel that expands throughout his works. And of course the fifth, the 5-1 illusions, the allusions to tonality. But here it's a texture. He alternates third, minor, triad, back to the third, major triad. Major and minor are alternating. This half step, the half step that defines major and minor. Minor, if we go up a half step with the middle note, we have major. So he's working on multiple levels to create this image, to convey the Fairies Are Exquisite Dancers from Peter Pan and Kensington Garden. It goes on after the trill. After a flourish, we go on like the beginning. Same thing, except this time he adds one on top to the bottom. like we're stuck. It's like Peter doesn't really know, is he going back to the real world or is he staying in the fantasy world with the fairies? Well, wow, open A flat, E flat fifths. Well, this sounds fairly traditional. This could be Brahms or something, right? And instead, now of course we have a half step. Half step, half step, half step, then the whole step. It just kind of goes somewhere. It could be a little octatonic, it's a little whole step, half step, it's a little the combination of the white keys with the black keys. I'm not going to get too technical with it. But suffice it to say, we go on, Peter's still finding his way as we move forward. Until finally we come to this section. That sounds modern, doesn't it? Well, it's part of an 027 tetrachord, suffice it to say. But what it really is this tritone, which is actually spelled first F sharp C, but then is enharmonically spelled G flat C. It's the same note. D in the middle, F sharp, well, G flat, A flat on top. But you see we've got the white key elements, the black key elements. He's still playing with this dichotomy, the real and the fantastical. So first we start with, A natural on top, then the natural, the white key infects it more. Well, that's a C major triad on top. We've completely gone to the white key realm now. And then we go on. Of course, he has to complicate it with these half steps, the C to the B to the B flat. You know, the chromatic element, this darker tinged. But white key has actually prevailed. Maybe the reality that Peter has to return to has prevailed here. You know, we go on, we're not over yet. Down a half step, that's a bit tinged, you know. And then another 5-1. Sorry. Basically B flat major with an added A flat. Major 7th chord, very bright. Completely black key. Now this C has been tinged with a B flat, which makes it like a 7th chord. So you see, it's still fighting, we're still not there yet. We have that same arpeggio going down. Still fighting as it goes on. Well, eventually it finds its way back, and as you know, Peter returns to the realm of the real. So I'll leave you with that, those ideas as you listen to this. This next is recording that I made on Debussy's piano during the concert in Brive, la-Gaillarde, the surprise concert. And I think that piano has a really rich golden sound for this piece.